And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 26th episode of The Hoosier Sound. I am your host, Noah Freeman, and I am here with Matthew Lukens. Our show has one main goal: to give you our perspective of IU sports from the point of view as a student or young adult. In addition, we will also give our view on hot takes from around the world of sports. We will be going live normally Tuesday evening at 8:30 p.m., but if you miss us live, you can subscribe to various networks so you can listen on your own time. We are now on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and our live stream will be posted on our YouTube page after each recording. All you got to do is search for The Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Just hit subscribe. It's really simple, really easy, and it would mean a lot to us if you guys just hit that subscribe button for us. Social media is also big, and we post updates for you guys on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you give us a like and a follow, as well as subscribe in our YouTube account. All the information is in the description below. You can check out our website, thehoosiersound.com, to find all of our information in one place. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk. But before we get into the show, we have an incredible special guest for you this evening. The Assembly Call's very own Andy Bottoms is here to talk March Madness and bracketology with us right before the tournament tips off. He's a world-renowned bracketologist and respected bracketologist where he publishes his brackets online. He's done it for nearly a decade on various sites like Midwest Sports Fan, Fox Sports, the Assembly Hall, and now he is publishing them on Inside Hall. In addition, he also co-hosts the Assembly Hall with Jared Morris and Ryan Phillips. You might remember the episode we did with Jared a few weeks ago. And we are honored to now have Andy Bottoms just hop on the Hoosier Sound with us to talk some bracketology and March Madness. Even if, sadly, IU season ended much earlier than all of us had hoped. But Andy, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening, just a couple days before all the madness begins?
I'm excited for the tournament to actually start, because that means that bracketology is over, and instead of overanalyzing everything, I can just sit back and enjoy the game. So,
Yeah.
and like you guys, there was a couple years ago where IU was on the bubble, and it was just kind of constant requests and things on Twitter to people asking, if IU was going to make it, if they were, what seed they would be. And after the last couple of years, while that was a lot to take in and feel that I had, was kind of holding everybody's hopes in my hands with the answer, I kind of wish it was back to that way. So hopefully before long it will be, and next year I'll be able to field some of those questions about where IU is going to be in the tournament, because
yeah, I agree.
The last couple not to be able to project that part of it out, but.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and this is not an IU specific podcast, but we've all talked about recently how I think all of us are very optimistic for the future with all this. But let's get into some bracketology first. Andy, do you want to explain basically how bracketology works and how you can compare yourself to other world-renowned bracketologists?
Yeah, so basically the exercise is to try and predict the field that's going to get in and where they're going to be seated. So, that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to project what other people are going to do. It's not necessarily what you think the bracket should be or would be. And so it would be a lot easier and a lot faster if it was just what I thought it should be. But you're trying to predict what the committee is going to do, and that's really the hard part. So it sounds like my audio is not very good, so I'm going to hop out. I'll be right back in, and you guys can vamp about whatever you want for a few minutes, and then hopefully the sound will be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So
he'll be right back.
Yeah, he'll be right back. Sorry about that. But and all the stuff he's about to say is really good. So he's just going to keep continuing on how his bracket work and how he basically can compare himself to larger and other bracketologists. Something like if you go on ESPN for per se and you hit bracketology, you'll see like Joe Lenardi's bracket. So he's basically doing the same stuff. So Andy's back on. So
all right, well, let's see if that's better. As I told you guys before, this is pretty much the ongoing thing with the Assembly Call, is that I have to get out and back in, even though I'm sitting in the same place, not doing anything different. But that seems that seems to work. So glad it's not specific to our show. It can be for any show.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what you're trying to do is really use RPI, quality wins, all the kinds of things that the committee looks at, strength of schedule, to figure out where you think that teams are going to be seated. There's to a certain extent a historical component to it, where you can kind of look back and see, oh, a team like this has happened before or not, and things like that. But the ultimate goal is to try to be as close as you can to what the committee does. And so that's where it gets a little bit difficult, because again, I could do it how I thought it should be a whole lot faster than the other way around. So you're trying to do that. So that's really the point of the exercise. And so in order to, kind of the way the scoring works, so bracketmatrix.com is a site that tracks it. And the guy who does that, they just had a story. I think he was included in the story that Eamon Brennan did on The Athletic. I think it was last week, about how when he started, how few people there were. And now I think this year there was close to 200 who did it. And so basically you get 3 points for getting a team in the field. And then you get, which pretty much everybody is going to do well in that regard. There's not a whole lot of delineation. You might get 66 or 67. I don't know. I think maybe one person this year got all 68. But the main place you get points is for getting the seed exactly correct. So if you get the seed exactly right, that's another 3 points. If you're within one plus or minus on the seed line, you get 1 point that way. So that's really where the seeding is, really where the kind of the bread and butter of being able to do well in it. So that's the thing. And so it's fun to, I think people initially, when they get into it, want to compare themselves to the Joe Lunardis and Jerry Palm and things like that. As you do it for a little while, you start to realize who the people who are really good year in and year out at it, and you kind of compare yourself to those people as well, although you still want to do better than the guys who everybody is quick to reference and talk about. But there's definitely a group of people. I'm sure there's all kinds of other things like this where there's you just know this guy, and that he's really good. So the guys at Delphi have done really well. Brian Tonsoni and the high school kids there have done well 3 years running, and so they've been really good. And then Dave Amon, who is at Bracketville, he's always really good as well. So all of them have, and including me, have Indiana connections. So this is like Indiana, hotbed of basketball, and apparently the hotbed of bracketology as well.
Of course, yeah. So tell us a little bit about your bracket this year compared to what the committee had. And I did see that you had a personal best. So congratulations on that, first of all.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah. Thank you. So I did. So I got 66 of the 68 teams. I missed Syracuse, as did pretty much everybody.
Yep.
And then I had St. Mary's in over Arizona State. And I in retrospect, I was really close to swapping that out toward the end, and just kind of went with my gut. And had I swapped it out, I would have done even better. And I think finished second this year. So there's always a little bit of, I'm glad to do my best, but the competitive part of you is like, I could have done a little bit better if I had done something different. But seed lines, I got 46 of those exactly right. And then 18 were plus or minus one. So the only ones I had off by 2 were Creighton, which I'm still vehemently against how high they were seated. There's
they were, yeah.
Some conspiracy theorists would say that it's because the chairman of the committee is Creighton's AD. Although they do have to step out of the room when they're being discussed. So I'm not here to perpetuate any of those theories, but theirs didn't quite add up to me where they were in the seed list. And then Providence was the other one, although they got bumped a little bit just because of these different bracketing procedures where you can't have teams from the same conference play each other at specific times. So there's a lot of that stuff to do in addition to actually predicting it. How you actually like throw them onto an actual bracket, there's some rules around that I've become more familiar with over the course of time. So those were the 2 that I missed by more than one. So I was pretty happy with it overall. Oddly, there were a few people who finished really close to the top who had not done as well in years past, but then you also had guys like the Delphi guys. I think they were 3 points ahead of me, and Dave Amon that I brought up before, I think he was 3 points ahead too. So it was interesting. But yeah, I was relatively happy with it. I would have been more happy, obviously, if I had not went with St. Mary's, which somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, like, oh, why would you have done that? And I'm like, well, in retrospect, I really can't answer that question very well. But hindsight's 2020, and usually the moves I make on the last day come back to bite me. So I think I went with what I had planned at the beginning of the day, and this was one case where I probably would have been better off changing it.
Yeah. So I guess kind of the big elephant in the room is, how do you think what do you think the committee saw, I guess, to put Syracuse in, since I guess that is the biggest question mark compared to everything?
Yeah, they had, I mean, their strength of schedule is really good, which I think has been in the past with Syracuse something that's hurt them. But I don't know. It's still a little bit puzzling to me. I think a lot of people want to look at a team like Oklahoma State and wonder why they're out. And I think the reason for that is just their RPI was almost 90th, which sounds like kind of a dumb answer because it probably is a dumb answer. But that was one where, I think I wrote the last day, I was like, the who they've beaten suggests that they can or should, be in, but their RPI was about 15 spots higher than the highest that's ever been included. So I wasn't going to bet on that happening, and that turned out to be the case. Their strength of schedules numbers weren't very good. I mean, it's one of those things where you can game the system pretty easily in schools that do a good job of it. I think Syracuse probably to a certain extent was able to do that this year, where as long as you don't play the absolute worst of the worst, you really won't kill yourself from a strength of schedule standpoint. And so if you're able to play kind of mid-level teams from mid-level leagues, your strength of schedule is going to look pretty good. And at the very least, that won't be held against you. So, Syracuse had done that. They beat Clemson late in the year, although I would argue beating Clemson late in the year once Dante Grantham was hurt is not quite the same accomplishment as it was earlier in the year and some of those things. So they had a few decent kind of middle of the road ACC wins. So I guess that's why I think the strength of schedule and kind of a handful of solid wins. It was still surprising they weren't completely off the radar. Syracuse has been a bubble team for what it feels like is the last 5 years. So I've gotten to know some of the media members here fairly well from being on with them. And one guy, he was like, well, what % chance do you give him? And this was like Wednesday, I think, maybe Thursday. And I think I said 10%. So I was really glad I didn't say 0. So he didn't seem like he didn't seem like somebody to come back and throw it in my face, but I did say 10%. So I guess I wasn't too far off. And I think I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they made it, but I would have been surprised. And I guess that's where it fell out.
Do you are you someone that's under the conspiracy theorist that since Syracuse has done so well in the tournament recently that they just wanted to see how far they could go?
It's funny. There's a lot of those theories out there that you really don't have any choice but to take the committee at their word. They say they don't factor in past performance. They say that the last 10 games are no more important than the first 10 games. I think we saw that to be true with a team like Oklahoma getting in this year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that they say that it's really hard to know without being in the committee room. Like, well, does that really come up? Do you really believe that? Is that really, what you would do? So, so I'm going to take them at their word and say that past performance doesn't have anything to do with it. Because I guess ultimately, if you wanted to look at that, a team like Middle Tennessee's had some good, couple years. They were a team that got left out that I would have, again, if I was making it who I would have liked to see get in, they probably would have been in there. I thought they had done enough, but just probably not enough in the eyes of the committee. So I don't assume that's true with Syracuse, but I also can't assume that there's no part of that factors into it either, just because we simply don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if you guys do want to check out Andy's bracket to see how he lined everything up between 1 through 16 and all their seeds, just go to insidethehall.com and you can find it out on there. And even like the last 4 in that he had compared to some of the first few out, and what his thoughts were compared to what the committee would have thought. But so we're for the rest of the show, we thought it'd be a fun idea just to go through the bracket and basically just make our own Hoosier Sound / Andy Bottoms assembly call kind of bracket. And all right, so Matt, take it away. Let's start with
all right, we're gonna
number 1 Virginia versus number 16 UMBC.
Yeah,
I don't want to before we get started. I don't want to misrepresent anything. I may be pretty good at predicting where the teams are going to slot in the field. I have a not good track record of picking the winner. So I don't want anybody to come back on you guys and say, you had this guy on. I thought he was supposed to know stuff that I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there before we get started, because there are some people who look at bracketology and they think that it's picking who will win the game. So every year about this time, I start getting a bunch of people, are you going to post your picks anywhere? And I'm like, I can assure you, those are not something that you're going to want to copy. So I'll do my best. I'm happy to offer my opinion, but I don't want to mislead anyone.
No, yeah, that's fine. And I feel like this year, no matter how good anyone is at picking stuff, I feel like this year is definitely the year out of all years to just have all heck break loose.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So first matchup, UVA, UMBC in the South. I think it's fairly certain to say that because it's a 1 seed, there's a good chance that you guys are going to pick UVA to win this matchup.
I think
that's reasonable. This is not one to waste time on. So
no, it's not.
Okay. Even though DeAndre Hunter did break his hand today, but
that may affect some of my later thoughts on Virginia, but not this one.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so then the second matchup in the South, 8th seed Creighton versus 9th seed Kansas State. Anybody got thoughts on that one?
I went with Kansas State on.
Okay.
I only picked like half of the bracket, so in the one I have written down, I picked Kansas State. Partly just because maybe I'm still bitter about where Creighton was seated. Also, Marcus Foster revenge game. You can't really downplay that angle of it for Kansas.
Yeah.
I'll go with them. I thought they played. Their seed was hurt by their strength of schedule, but I thought they played a lot of team stuff in the Big 12 and played pretty well. So that's who I would go with. But I could be swayed either way.
No, okay. Yeah, I'm saying I think I could see either ways in a couple of brackets. I'll put both, but yeah, I think Kansas State, when it's all said and done, just bigger, harder play basically between the Big 12 versus Creighton. So,
okay. So Kansas State, moving on, playing UVA. All right. So third matchup in the South, a really fun one: Kentucky and Davidson. 5 seed Kentucky, 12 seed Davidson. I'm thinking Kentucky, but it's a 5-12 matchup. So what do we know?
I mean, this is a Hoosier related thing. So I feel like I should pick against Kentucky just out of principle. I think it'll be an interesting game. I picked Kentucky, but I do think Davidson can give them a good game. I mean, they're really good offensively. I just don't know how they'll be able to hold up on the defensive end against what Kentucky can do. But I do think they'll get shots. I think it'll be close. But I went with Kentucky as my gut instinct, so I would stick with that. But again, if you want to put Davidson, you're not gonna have to twist my arm.
Same. I echo both of you. I had Kentucky for similar reasons.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Fourth matchup in the South: Arizona and Buffalo. DeAndre Ayton in Arizona. Very good. DeAndre Ayton's a man.
Yeah, I gotta go Arizona in that. I think Buffalo could have given some other teams a good game on that, kind of 4 or 5 seed line range, but I don't think this is it.
I agree. I think it's a bad draw. I think Arizona is poised and ready to make some sort of run. All
right, and then the next one is possibly my favorite matchup in the first round, which is Miami and Loyola Chicago. Andy, got any thoughts on that one?
I picked Loyola. I think they've been they pretty much dominated the Missouri Valley. They went to Florida and won at Florida in the non-conference. So I think they're pretty good. Miami's best player, Bruce Brown, is out. So I think Loyola. This is one of the upsets that I think will happen, and could potentially even see them win another game.
How about you, Noah?
I had Loyola, and I know you did too. So we got 3-0 for Loyola Chicago. But same thing. But the only part is it's hard for me to pick against Miami because I got a soft spot for Coach Larinaga. I grew up literally 10 minutes from George Mason, and I was there and had all the stuff. I went to his basketball camps when they had that Final Four run. So I love Coach Larinaga. He's a great guy too. But
yeah, him being the coach definitely is what gives me pause about picking the
exactly.
Picking the game. They've just been kind of inconsistent. So that's the main reason I went with it. But yeah, he's the main reason I would potentially think not to pick it.
Exactly. Yeah, I even still have his autograph, so I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. Next matchup: 3rd seed Tennessee Volunteers versus Wright State, the 14th seed.
Tennessee is a 3 seed.
Yeah, I know. They're a 3 seed, and the team they lost to in the SEC tournament's a 5 seed. I know Coach Cal's very upset about that.
I had Tennessee. I think, they've had an up and down season, I guess, like a lot of teams, but I don't think Wright State is just strong enough to take down Tennessee.
Yeah, I've got Tennessee as well.
Okay, cool. So next matchup, Nevada, who would have been my dark horse to win the whole thing about 2 months ago, and Texas. So I went with Texas personally. I think Mohamed Bamba is a freak. And I like Texas's coach. I like Shaka Smart. So, especially with Nevada losing their starting point guard.
Yeah, I had Texas as well for similar reasons. They haven't been quite the same down the stretch since they lost their point guard, whose name is escaping me, and I'm furiously looking up right now. But I mean, I could see this game being either way. I think Texas, given some of the injuries and personnel things they've had this year, has done pretty well for what they've had. But we'll see. Lindsey Drew was the guy's name. That was not at all what was in my head.
Yeah, no, that's not what I was thinking either.
Interesting. Yeah, same thing.
But yeah, I think that's the problem. I think Texas is challenged, but Nevada's got some guys who can really score. So that'll be a test for Shaka's defense. But I had Texas as well.
Yeah, same thing. I had Texas. Just like Andy's been saying, you wouldn't be able to twist my arm just to. I could see either one. Yeah, and Shaka Smart, VCU from old VCU. So let's go with Texas.
All right, we're almost done with the South. We got our last matchup. We got Cincinnati, 2 seed, and the 15th seed. Georgia State is back in the tournament, people. You think they're going to knock off Cincinnati?
I don't think so. Cincinnati's too good defensively for me. They might struggle to score at times, but I think they'll be pretty good. Georgia State had a really good run in their tournament, but had been kind of, hanging around in their conference, but was not the best team in their conference throughout the year. And I think UC is playing really well.
I don't know what you guys think. I still think Cincinnati. I think though Georgia State might have the best chance to have that 15-2 upset. Not sure what you guys think, but I still think Cincinnati will pull out, but I think Georgia State might have the best chance to pull out a number 2 upset.
I would agree. Of the 15s, I would definitely give them the nod.
All right, so we got 4 of the round of 32 done. So we're going to move down to the West bracket, the Western Quadrant. We're going to do Xavier versus the winner, or I guess they haven't played yet. So the winner of NCC and TS. So safe to say Xavier.
Xavier either way.
No brainer.
All right, this one's interesting for me. 8-9 matchup. Mizzou and Florida State. Mizzou just got Michael Porter Jr. back. Florida State's been reeling the last couple weeks. Any thoughts on this matchup?
I'm not sure either one of these teams is going in the right direction. Missouri's second leading scorer just got popped for a DUI and he's suspended. So it sounds like Porter's going to play more. Jordan Barnett. So he's out. I didn't really. I was listening to a different podcast today, and they said something about I couldn't wait to pick against Florida State, and no matter who they played, and then they wound up picking them because they didn't feel good about Missouri. So I guess whenever I wrote this the other night, I wrote down Missouri, but I could easily be swayed. I don't really know. I think Porter didn't, obviously with the long layoff, didn't look very good when he first came back, and so I think that's a potential issue there. I think Missouri probably from a talent perspective has a little bit more. So that's who I had down. But if you guys outvote me or want to go Florida State, I would not argue. I do not have a strong feeling about this game, and I don't know how good of a game it's actually going to be.
Yeah. What do you think, Noah?
I had Florida State. Same thing. I could see both. Just because even though had an up and down season, I guess I guess I don't have too much confidence in Missouri figuring out the DUI and Michael Porter coming back. They've had a little bit to think about it, but they haven't had too much time to put it into game.
All right, now you got to break the tie.
All right, I'm actually going with Florida State here because I've gone with Missouri in all my other brackets. So we're just gonna go with Florida State now. All
right, that reasoning is as good as any in that game.
I like it. Yeah, I like it.
All right, so another 5-12 matchup. We got Ohio State and South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Think Ohio State's going to be sent home early, Andy?
I don't know. Well, I mean, they're not playing Penn State, so they could win. I mean, that was really their Achilles heel over the course of the season. So, South Dakota State, they got Mike Dahlm. He can really score. But I think Ohio State, if they put Bates Diop on him, can slow him down a little bit and really make him guard. So I went with Ohio State. It could be, typically we're going to get 1-5-12 upset. It's not the one that I picked, and might be, kind of third on my list of ones, but they struggle down the stretch. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I went with Ohio State. Okay.
I went with Ohio State as well. No, you went with Ohio State, I'm assuming?
No.
Really?
Well, see, this was just kind of the one where it's like, oh, it's a 5-12 upset. I just kind of had just that bracketology madness. I had a 12, but I'm going to put South Dakota State, even though I in my gut I'll say Ohio State, but you guys already had it anyway. So
all right, Ohio State it is. All right, Gonzaga, who's actually I didn't even realize they had only 4 losses this year. They're 30-4 versus UNC Greensboro. Anybody got any thoughts on this one?
Gonzaga, I was impressed with all that they lost from their team last season that made the title game. I've been pretty impressed with them. They've really come on strong later in the season. Obviously, their conference is not quite as strong as some others, but they're playing really well. So that one's a no-brainer for me to pick them.
Yeah, when Gonzaga is going to lose, it's definitely not going to be in the very first 2 days.
Yes, I agree. All right, moving on. 6 seed Houston versus 11 seed San Diego State. Both these teams are very interesting to me because both of them could be Sweet 16 contenders in my eyes. So
You think San Diego State could be all the way to Sweet 16?
I think they could upset Michigan. They got the size to match up.
That's
with
true.
them.
Yeah.
I had Houston, but I could see San Diego State winning. They played well lately. They finally back full health and at full strength and have played really well. Kind of rolled through the Mountain West tournament and played really well. But I think Houston, Houston is good. Rob Gray, the guard there is really good. Although my wife told my daughter usually puts her hair in a bun when she plays. So if anybody hasn't seen Rob Gray, he's kind of got it like shaved on the side.
Yeah.
Back and in a bun. So that when we were watching the AAC championship game the other day, my wife made sure to tell my daughter that was not an option if she wanted to keep up with the bun. So, but I do think that'll be a really entertaining game. Probably one of the first round games I'm looking forward to the most. So I think either team could win, but I had Houston.
I think it could go either way. At the end of the day, I'm going to say San Diego State. I really like a lot of these 6-11 games. I think this year, instead of maybe the 12-5 upset, it might be that 6-11 upset. So I'm going to say San Diego State.
Well, I'm going to break the tie, and I'm going to go with Houston.
Right.
I had to lead it on a bit, but I'm kind of actually rooting for what Kelvin Sampson did for the community in Houston after the hurricane. So I'm rooting for Houston in this one. So Houston it is. Moving on, Michigan and Montana. Do we have to really debate about this too much?
I think that's another no-brainer for the first round.
I would agree. I've heard some people giving Montana a chance, and they played really well in their league over the course of the season. But I think Michigan actually has some defense now to go with the offense. It's always good. So I definitely think they'll win.
And for some reason, Michigan likes to do well in tournaments.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. So moving on, Texas A&M and Providence. This is an interesting matchup. Andy, thoughts?
I went with Providence. I feel like similar to Creighton, just wanted to, continue to pound the drum that I thought that they were underseeded. So I guess that's why. Now Texas A&M has a ton of size. Not a lot of guards at this point. They've had a number of guards get suspended or kicked off the team.
Yep.
So their backcourt is pretty thin, and Providence really playing well in the Big East tournament. Puts me over the edge. Maybe Ed Cooley splits his pants again and wears the Gatorade towel. I mean. I think he's a really good coach, all joking aside. And so I think that's who I would go with there.
Definitely.
All right. I'll say Providence too.
All right. Providence it is, 3 ways. All right. Do we have to debate this very much? UNC and Lipscomb?
No.
UNC, everybody? Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Yep. All right. Moving on. In the East region, Villanova and Radford.
Yep, because Radford
Villanova.
just won tonight.
Villanova, everybody?
Yep.
All right. Interesting 8-9 matchup. Always go 50-50. Virginia Tech, who I actually haven't seen much of this year, versus the hot Alabama Crimson Tide.
I went with Virginia Tech. I think a lot of people will want to go with Alabama. They're playing well. They've got Colin Sexton. I think Virginia Tech doesn't match up too badly with them. Not just kind of like Buzz Williams. I think they, if you haven't seen them, if you've seen one Buzz Williams team, like you've kind of seen them all. So just pretty much envision any other team that he's had, and this team plays a lot like that. I mean, they've beaten, they won at Virginia, so I think that was a kind of big win for them to have. Got a number of good athletes, and Alabama still had 15 losses over the course of the season. They won some really tough games as well, so they're a little bit hard to figure out who's going to show up. So that was a coin flip one to me. Again, I think it should be pretty entertaining, but I went with Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I agree for a lot of the same stuff. I'm looking forward to this game a lot too, because I could literally see, like you said, it's a coin flip. One bracket I'll pick VT, one bracket I'll pick Alabama. Yep. But yeah, I think you made a good point. Was everyone's basically saying if you pick Alabama, it's just because they have Colin Sexton, and that's about it. But I'm gonna have to pick VT just because I'm gonna stay a homer. Didn't grow up not too far from VT, and it's a really nice place. So I'm just gonna stay. There's one reason to pick VT.
All right. Well, I went with Alabama because I see a lot more of them because I'm down here in Florida. But Virginia Tech it is. We'll move on.
You got outvoted.
I did get outvoted. So that's how this works. Democracy, people. All right. West Virginia and Murray State. Another 5-12 matchup. Any thoughts? Press Virginia going to get upset by a 12 seed?
I had West Virginia. I think they're for teams that aren't used to them and teams that don't have the high level guards that can really deal with that, like a Kansas was able to do. I think it's just hard for somebody like that to overcome.
Yeah, I agree. Even with West Virginia's struggles, basically just going far into the tournament, no matter how high they've been seeded, I don't think Murray State is going to be the place that they're going to drop in this tournament.
Nope. All right, so this is an interesting matchup. A lot of the press is covering this one. So we get the 4th seed Wichita State versus the 13th seed Marshall, and one of the D'Antonio brothers. Andy, thoughts?
I didn't pick a 4-13 upset, but if I did pick one, this would be the one that I would pick. Marshall shoots. I mean, just like if the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, the D'Antonios like to get out and shoot it, so they're going to shoot a ton of threes. Wichita State has been uncharacteristically poor on defense this year, so I still think Wichita State probably wins. I just think they've got better players and can beat them up inside a little bit. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Marshall win, but I went with Wichita State.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing. Wichita State.
Wichita State it is, though. Watch out. Marshall's coming for your brackets. All right. 6th seed Florida, and then the winner of St. Bonaventure and UCLA. So,
Matt, how about you lead it off, because I know who you're going to pick.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to pick Florida. Let's go Gators. Lifelong Gator fan over here, so I'm slightly biased. But anyways, Andy, thoughts?
Florida's been a hard team to figure out. Like, they've played really well. I mean, it sounds cliche to say. I mean, we would always joke on the postgame show about Tom Crean saying, like, well, you just needed to make more shots. But I'm going to say the same thing about Florida. Like, if they make threes, like they're capable of, they can really do well. So I'm going to pick them. I think if UCLA beats St. Bonaventure, though, I think they could give them a really good game. But since we don't know that yet, UCLA's 4-point lead with 7.5 minutes into the game is not enough for me to advance them quite yet. So I'm gonna stick with Florida in this case. But I do think if it's UCLA, I think that game will be entertaining and close.
Yes.
It's Florida from both of you guys, but I would have picked St. Bonaventure or UCLA. I think I'm going to go with that. That's a popular possible upset.
Okay. No, that's fair. But I do think if it ends up being Florida UCLA, that rematch of the national title in 2007, 2008, that'll be fun to watch. All right, so Texas Tech, Stephen F. Austin, 3 seed 14. Some people are picking actually Stephen F. Austin to win. So Andy.
Yeah, they've got a gaudy record, but I'll pick Texas Tech. I think they're really good defensively. Keenan Evans, it seemed like from a seeding perspective, they got a little bit of a break because he's a really good player. Missed some time, was hobbled in some games, and seemed like they got some credit for that. They won handily at Kansas, so I think that says a lot about them. But I think particularly defensively, I think they'll be able to frustrate whoever it is that's they're facing in that, or Stephen F. Austin, and then probably again whoever else they're facing in the second round.
Yeah, I think it's hard to pick against sometimes. You look at Stephen F. Austin and just recent track record, but I don't think Texas Tech is a team that if you just look at just record, which you can't really look at just record as a sole thing to pick teams this year, but it looks like they're better than 9 losses, and they've had some tough games because the Big 12's been pretty deep this year. So yeah, I'm going to pick Texas Tech.
All right, so Texas Tech it is. All right, moving on. 7 seed Arkansas, 10 seed Butler Bulldogs from Indy. Any thoughts?
I went with Butler here. I think this will be, I don't know that this will be a particularly entertaining game, but I think it'll be close. Arkansas really likes to press. Butler's got, Kamar Baldwin in particular, a really good guard. So I think that helps. I think that helps quite a bit with them being able to handle the pressure. So I'll go Butler, but we certainly wouldn't be shocked to see Arkansas win. They've been a little bit up and down too, as it seems like so many of those SEC teams right in the middle of the league that just kind of beat each other up all season. But I went Butler.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I was looking at Daniel Gafford, who's the center for Arkansas, and he is a prime NBA prospect. But I also went with Butler. So, Noah?
I had Arkansas, but it's not worth debating very much since you guys had it.
All right, so Butler it is. And then Purdue versus Cal State Fullerton. Safe to say Purdue here for everybody.
Yeah, I had them. I thought Fullerton was probably a seed line too high, but I think Purdue will win that one pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's much of a debate.
Purdue it is. All right. Number 1 Kansas in the Midwest versus number 16 seed Penn. I think Penn can do it. Do you think Penn can do it this year?
I saw you, Andy, talk about. I agree. I think Penn was a little underseeded, but I don't think it's still good enough to beat Kansas.
No.
Yeah, I thought they probably warranted a 15 more than a 16, but yeah, they're still not. I don't see them beating Kansas.
I think same kind of thing, just like Cincinnati. If there was even a small sliver of a chance I think Penn would be the closest possible number 16, number 1 upset, but still definitely not enough. I think it's going to be one of those games you always see 16 ones, like where the 16 seed is close to it for like half the game, and then the second half they just blow them out of the water.
Right, they're within 3 at half, and everybody's like, "Oh!" and then they lose by 20 in the end.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Seton Hall, NC State. This is another 8-9 toss-up game. Andy, thoughts?
I went with Seton Hall. I think got a really veteran team that I think in some ways hasn't played as well as a lot of people expected them to over the course of the season. But I'll go with them. They haven't had a ton of tournament success, fortunately, but I think maybe that, motivation and all those kinds of things helps a little bit. But I could see either team winning this one. It should be another good 8-9 game, but I went Seton Hall.
What about you, Matt?
I went with Seton Hall as well. How about you?
Yeah, I same thing. I'm going to write both in a couple different brackets, but I'll go Seton Hall.
All right, another 5-12 matchup. Clemson, New Mexico State. Is this your 5-12 upset, Andy?
This was the 5-12 upset that I picked. It's kind of weird in this little pod here with Clemson and Auburn because I don't know that it was another set of teams that I thought I would pick against. Clemson, I think, just hasn't really been the same since Grantham went down, which is understandable since he was, arguably their best player. So I went New Mexico State. They've been pretty solid throughout. And I think they might have beat Miami when they played in the Diamond Head over Christmas. So I went New Mexico State.
Do you have that? You have that same?
They did beat Miami. Yeah, I had the same. I had the same upset. This is one that I'm banking on.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Clemson.
You're gonna say Clemson? All right.
I'm gonna say Clemson. I got family in Clemson. Say Clemson.
I just feel like Clemson has not been the same since they lost their second leading scorer. So New Mexico State it is. 4 seed Auburn, 13 seed Charleston. Is it safe to say Auburn's safe here?
I picked Auburn. Had they played potentially some of the other 13s, I might have picked somebody else, but they lost one of they're not a big team to begin with, but they lost a guy to a pretty gruesome ankle injury a couple weeks ago and haven't played very well since then. I just don't know. Charleston has good guards, and so does Auburn. So I think I heard somebody else say today that's not how you're going to beat Auburn. So I'll stick with them.
Yeah, same. I had Auburn.
All right. So next matchup: 6 seed TCU, 11 seed either the winner of Arizona State, Syracuse. Andy, thoughts?
I went with TCU. I thought they were another team that was probably a little bit overseeded, particularly after they lost Jalen Fisher. I still went with them because I'm not convinced that, those are the last 2 teams that were in the field in terms of Arizona State and Syracuse. So if Arizona State gets hot the way they did in games earlier in the season, I think they could beat them. I don't know about Syracuse. I think TCU's got some decent 3-point shooters that could help against his own. So I just went TCU almost by default because I didn't like I liked the other 2 less than I liked TCU.
The only 2 you didn't have in the field, yeah. I'm going to say Arizona State, Syracuse. Either one. I think either one's going to beat TCU. Yeah, like we said, Arizona can get hot, and I just think Syracuse just recently with just how well they've done in the tournament. And I think, even with 3-point shooting, I think sometimes, especially if you don't really see a zone that as maybe 4 or 5 years ago might have bring back some bad memories that
oh boy,
Syracuse zone, which I was actually there. By the way, I was at that game.
You were at that game? Oh man,
I was at that game. I thought we talked about this, except that was when I was rooting for the other team.
Oh man.
It's okay. All right. My dad grew up in upstate New York before I came to IU, but I turned to the light side.
All right, that's good. That's good.
All right, so TCU it is. All right, Michigan State, Bucknell. Safe to say Michigan State's safe here?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, Michigan State's moving on. All right, Rhode Island and our boy Stan Robinson versus Trae Young in Oklahoma.
Yes, I always forget about Stan on Rhode Island.
He's repping the Hoosiers.
That's right. He had a really good game. I think it was last year in the tournament when they played Oregon. He almost single-handedly helped them beat them. Jared and I, for any longtime listeners of the Assembly Call, Jared and I really went to bat for Stan Robinson on a number of occasions, and so felt somewhat vindicated by his performance in that game. But I went Rhode Island. Oklahoma just hasn't been playing well. Trae Young is obviously still a really good player, but he's got to have people around him be able to make shots, and they just haven't done that consistently, and that's been a big reason that they've struggled. I just think Rhode Island is too tough. And And I think people will use it as justification that Oklahoma shouldn't have been in the tournament, which I don't really agree with. But I think for all the talk about that, I think Rhode Island comes out and plays pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's different from having a bad streak versus having a bad streak over the span of 10 or 12 games. Basically, it's different than having just a couple losses versus how far off Oklahoma has gone. And I think Rhode Island, again, yeah, like you said, is too tough to look over.
All right, so Rhode Island it is. Sorry, Trae Young, you're not playing Duke. All right, next matchup, Duke, Iona. Safe to say Duke wins this one?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, we're done with the round of 64. On to the round of 32. Back up in the South bracket, we got UVA and Kansas State. Is it safe to say UVA is safe from this one?
Yeah, I still think they're okay. I don't think the DeAndre Hunter injury comes back to bite them quite yet. I think they'll be able to handle whoever comes out of that Creighton K-State game.
I agree. I like UVA pretty far, even with that injury. I like them going at least a little farther than the second game.
All right, moving on to one of the better ticket selling matchups of the round of 32, Arizona and Kentucky. Andy, I want to hear your prediction on this one.
I've got Arizona. I just think Aiton's too much for Kentucky. I do think it'll be an entertaining game, but since I was somewhat hesitant to pick Kentucky to get out of the first round, then I probably, if I'm even close in the second one, I probably should pick against them. So I think Arizona wins. I think they've got an interesting road, especially now with the Hunter injury. If they could find a way to to string together a couple games, they've gotten a bit better defensively over the course of the season. That was something that really they struggled with early on, and they're at full strength at this point. So I'm going to go with them over Kentucky.
Yeah, I want to go with Arizona as well. And also, yeah, with you, like this ticket selling games, what is this 4 or 5 Kentucky big ticket selling games? But hopefully,
even in Boise, I'm sure that'll be a big draw.
Yeah, that will. All right, so I also had Arizona. So we're good there. All right, our upset, our Cinderella, Loyola Chicago against Tennessee. You think Tennessee's going to win this one pretty easily?
Yeah, I was tempted to pick Loyola again. I do think they give Tennessee a good game, but I went with Tennessee here. A lot of times, if I pick the first round upset, I'll kind of hedge my bets by not having them advance another pick. So I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but I do think Tennessee's probably outperformed what people would say their talent level probably is. But I do think that'd be a good game. But I went with Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree. I think as even if Loyola Chicago they do upset, I don't think they'd be able to do it just 2 days later against a really good team. If they have one upset, it's a little different to do the same exact thing 2 days in a row with about no turnaround time, basically.
Yeah, see, I think Loyola Chicago is going to actually win that game. I actually think that Loyola Chicago is going to then play Cincinnati and beat Cincinnati in my bracket. So I have Loyola Chicago going to the Elite Eight.
Oh man,
it's
watch Miami beat them.
To be wrong. Watch Miami beat them. But if they get on a roll, I'm riding with them because they're a small team, but so is Cincinnati. So that's what I'm going with. Anyway, moving on. Texas, Cincinnati. Andy, thoughts? You think Texas can pull off the upset?
No, I just think Cincinnati's just too tough defensively. And Texas has had trouble scoring a lot over the course of the season. I mean, they've been better on the defensive end than on the offensive end. And I live in Cincinnati, so I get to see the Bearcats quite a bit. Okay. And I think they're one of the better teams that they've had. Again, not super explosive offensively, but I think they're good enough on defense to be able to get through that matchup.
Agreed. I don't know, and we'll debate this soon, but I don't think Cincinnati will go all the way necessarily, but I don't think they're still gonna. I don't think they're gonna go home early.
Okay. All right. So moving on, Xavier, Florida State in the West. Safe to say Xavier gets past Florida State in this one.
Yeah, I like Xavier no matter who they play out of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially with all the debate of just how bad that first matchup was.
Yeah,
exactly. Yep. That'll probably be the 8-9 game that upsets the 1-2 just because we said that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I'm not picking it. It might happen, but I'm not picking it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another reminder. Don't take us at our word. This is not who's going to win. This is just who we think is.
Yeah. At 9:45 on a Tuesday evening too.
Right. We don't even know who's going to be the 11 seeds yet for
exactly
2 of them. So all right. Anyway, Gonzaga, OSU, 4-5 seed. I'm going with Gonzaga.
Yep, I would second that. I don't think Ohio State. I just don't think that's a good matchup for them. And and again, we thought about Ohio State maybe losing in the first round to South Dakota State. So yeah, I definitely have the Zags here.
Yep.
I'll echo that.
Okay. All right, moving on. 6 seed Houston, 3 seed Michigan. Kelvin gets a shot at one of his former Big Ten foes. Any thoughts on this one?
I like Michigan. I just like the way they're playing. The only thing that gives me a little bit of concern is, we don't really know how these Big Ten teams are going to play off of that long layoff.
That's true.
Although I think they all would agree that they could use it after, the way the Big Ten season went this year. So hopefully they're re-energized and good to go. But I'll pick Michigan. And hopefully if there's any rust, they get that out of their system in the first game.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I think Michigan's tournament success is going to sustain them at least past Houston.
See, I'm going to say for the culture, I'm going to say Houston, but Michigan it is anyway. So Michigan moves on. 10 seed Providence versus UNC. I think Providence can upset like they did Xavier, beat UNC.
I think it'd be an interesting game if they're able to win. I think if UNC plays Texas A&M, I think UNC would win relatively easily. If they play Providence, I think it's closer, but I still had UNC winning.
Yeah. Even with UNC having its first 10-loss season in a long time, I think when it comes tournament time, they know what to do. Roy Williams knows what to do.
Definitely. All right. Moving on, going to the East, Villanova with the home court against Virginia Tech. Safe to say Villanova wins this one as well.
Yep, definitely Villanova for me.
Yep, I love my Hokies, but not against Nova.
All right. 5 seed West Virginia, 4 seed Wichita State. One of the more fun matchups. Do you think Press Virginia wins this one?
I do. I have them winning. Wichita State. I just don't know that they have enough ball handlers to really deal with the press. Landry Shamet is good, but I don't know outside of that who you really give the ball to and to help break the press. So I'm going to say that. I think that would be a pretty entertaining game. Again, Wichita State. If Wichita State was at the level that they've been recently defensively, I might have a different idea. But if they can't take care of the ball and give up, open shots to West Virginia, I think that becomes a tough game for them to win.
Matt, I assume you have West Virginia going on.
I have West Virginia because I believe they're a much improved team from last year offensively, and their defense against this Wichita State team is going to be too much. They have better defense than Wichita State does, and they have okay offense. And Wichita State's defense is not as good as it has been in the past. So, yeah, West Virginia.
I am picking Wichita State literally for this one and only reason is because both Wichita State and West Virginia are teams that I've hated picking for in the brackets in the past years, because West Virginia, I always have them going much farther than they ever do. And Wichita State, I always have them getting out much further than they always do. So I'm just flipping it for once, but that's literally the only reason. You'll see that in my bracket. But I would still pull for West Virginia, and I still think they're going to be the ones that will go on.
Okay. All right. Moving on. My Florida Gators versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Any thoughts?
I had Texas Tech. I like them defensively. I think they can. I think I almost gave this pick away when we were going through the first time. So I think, I really like what they can do defensively, and Keenan Evans is really good. So I'll go with them.
Yeah, I had the same thing. Texas Tech, no matter if they play Florida, St. Bonaventure, UCLA, I think they're too tough of a team to go home early on the first weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I had Texas Tech too, even though I'm a Florida fan. Anyway, moving on. All right, rematch from the regular season from the Crossroads Classic. We got Butler and Purdue.
I've got Purdue again.
Yeah, Purdue.
They handled them the first time. I think they'll do it again.
I also have Purdue.
I'm going to be a big Butler fan, just about probably 10 minutes from where Butler is, but I still think Purdue's going to pull it out.
All right, moving on. Kansas, Seton Hall in the Midwest. I actually think Seton Hall, if they play up to their full potential, can give Kansas a game, especially since they're big, but I have Kansas winning this one.
Yeah, I do too. Seton Hall was a team people were pretty high on early in the season, but they just didn't play well enough, consistently enough for me, but I'm going Kansas, although if Azubuike's still out, that could get interesting just with the size inside.
Yep.
I think both Seton Hall or NC State is going to give Kansas a run for their money, but I still think Kansas is just going to pull it out by the end of it. Devontae Graham's just going to he's going to close the game out.
All right, so we got New Mexico State, 12 seed versus 4 seed Auburn. You think New Mexico State can do this, Andy?
I almost picked them again, but I went with Auburn. I just don't know that they're the kind of team that's going to give Auburn problems. I've said that about both teams so far, so they'll probably lose in the first round. But I think Auburn still has enough, and I think Bruce Pearl is a good enough coach. I think they can get past that one.
Yeah, I agree. In addition to having enough, I think winning the SEC. Which when do you ever hear about Auburn winning the SEC in basketball? I think their high is at least going to extend through the weekend. So I'm going to pick them.
Yeah, I also had Auburn. All right, moving on. 6 seed TCU, 3 seed Michigan State. Safe to say Michigan State wins this one.
Yep, I had them no matter who comes out of those other
matchups. Yep, I think Michigan State was even underseeded this bracket.
All right, and poor Rhode Island versus powerhouse Duke. I think Rhode Island has any shot at beating Duke at all.
No, I just don't think they've got the size. I would pick Duke. The only part of me that really wants to see Oklahoma win is just so I can watch Trae Young shoot 35-footers over the Duke zone. But
yeah, exactly.
And see what might happen there. But no, I don't know that ultimately either of those teams could beat Duke. But yeah, I don't think Rhode Island will.
Especially with Marvin Bagley, there's just not much from Rhode Island that can really stop that.
There's nobody in Rhode Island that can stop that. All right, moving back. So we got our Sweet 16 set, guys. We got UVA and Arizona. So this, for me, is where I believe the DeAndre Hunter injury comes into factor, because DeAndre Hunter is one of their better defensive guys coming off the bench, especially guarding small wing players. And Lonzo is Lonzo Trier back, right?
Yeah,
he's back.
Lonzo Trier's suspension got turned around.
And I think he would have been the perfect guy to lock onto him. But now that he's gone, I think Arizona might want to run riot on this one and knock out our first 1 seed.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say the same thing. The pack line tries to take away, getting the ball inside. So if they can find a way to do that and swarm Ayton and make guys make shots to the perimeter, it's possible Virginia could still win. Yeah. I just don't know if offensively they can do enough and create the mismatches that they need to in that case. So yeah, I'm going to go Arizona. I had struggled to fill this one out even before the news about Hunter, so that kind of tipped it in Arizona's favor for me.
I agree. It's a coin flip. I'm going to say UVA. I think even with some of that stuff, and it's going to factor at some point. Virginia's just been very consistent, and they've had a lot more offense than in recent teams. But I'm going to say Virginia, even though most of you said Arizona.
Well, I would love to see Virginia making it. It's one of those where you think Tony Bennett can't do it, and the one year that it seems like even more things are stacked against him than normal, then maybe this is the one that does it. So in that regard, no, you might be right.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. I think that would be cool.
I agree.
Okay. But we're moving Arizona on. All right. So Tennessee, Cincy, Andy, because you're from Cincinnati, are you going to take Cincinnati in this one?
Yeah, I think UC can take care of them. Tennessee's not a team that has a ton of size. Got a lot of solid guys, no superstars, nobody spectacular. So I think again defensively UC can do enough, and so I think they're able to make it to the Elite Eight.
What about you, Matt?
Same thing. I like Cincinnati's defense. I think Loyola gives them a chance with their shooting if they make it this far, but because of Tennessee, I think Cincy wins.
Yeah, I agree. I think the matchup's just a little different, even if Tennessee's had a much better season than normal.
All right, moving down to the West, we got Xavier and Gonzaga, battle of 2 private schools. So thoughts on this one?
This one I really struggled with to the point where the bracket I'm looking at, I don't have anything filled in on it quite yet. I'm tempted to go Xavier here. They have played a lot of close games and have found a way to come out on the winning end of those. And again, maybe it's just a little bit of that, can they push themselves a little bit closer to getting over the hump to finally get to the Final Four? This would certainly not get them there, but it'd be a step in that direction. So I wouldn't be surprised either way, but I'm going to go with Xavier. But I don't feel super confident about it.
What about you, Matt?
See, I went with Gonzaga because I think Mark Few is one of the few really good coaches in college basketball. So, yeah, I got Mark Few just because the coaching matchup. Even though Chris Mack's a great coach, don't get me wrong, but Mark Few is just one of the best 5 college coaches.
Oh, that's a hot topic. Interesting.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to go with Xavier. I think Gonzaga, except minus last year, they usually get out early somewhere in the tournament, and I don't know if they can repeat last year quite like they did. Even if they lost some people and got some people back, but I think Xavier is going to move on when it's all said and done.
This is a really good coaching. You talk about coaching between Mac, Mark Few, Beeline, and Roy Williams. If our picks hold true, that's a pretty solid quartet of coaches in that region for sure.
And even if we were talking about the one we were talking about that was really close was Ohio State, Gonzaga. Chris Holtman's a great coach as well. So like that,
Yeah.
those 4 coaches right there are incredible. I mean,
There's a lot of good ones. You throw Ed Cooley in there from Providence. I mean, Sampson has good X's and O's guys. You can debate whatever you want about him outside of that, but from a coaching perspective, he's really good. So this is a good region for coaches, that's for sure.
Definitely. I mean, it's not as good as the other region with Kansas, Michigan State, and Duke, but
not quite. Yeah, not quite like that.
Yeah, well, but anyways,
depth-wise, it might have more depth, but maybe not at the top end for sure.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So Michigan, UNC, this is definitely one of the better selling Sweet 16 matchups if this happens. So any thoughts on this one?
Especially all the way on the West Coast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've got Michigan in this one. I kind of allow myself to get sucked into Beeline quite a bit this time of year, and watching them the way they played in the Big Ten tournament just kind of made that worse. So I went with them. Could see it going either way. I just think he's so good offensively that they figure out a way to make it work.
What
about you, Matt? Oh, okay.
No,
I'll say to give Matt the tiebreaker. I'll go UNC just because again they lost a couple people, but they're still a veteran team that knows what to do, and they I think they'll know how to work the tournament a little more than possibly Michigan.
See, I like Michigan, but I think Joel Berry is such a good senior guard, and I feel like especially in the Sweet 16, when you get this far in the tournament, you're not just looking at who's the most talented, it's who's the most experienced. And this UNC team, you know, they won the title last year. They were in the final. They were in the final game 2 years ago. I think their experience pushes them over the hump on this one, and UNC wins, especially with Roy Williams as a coach too. So, again, coaching matchup again.
Yep, exactly.
All right, let's quickly get through the right side, and then we'll be close to being done.
Yeah, yes, we will. All right, so Villanova, West Virginia. Safe to say Villanova breaks the press this time.
Yeah, for as much as Wichita State's guards didn't match up well with the West Virginia press, I think Villanova, obviously with Jalen Brunson and all those guys, I think they match up really well, and I think that's a relatively good matchup for Villanova.
I think out of all the teams in there, I think Villanova at least not easy, but I think they have a clearer path than others to get to the Elite Eight.
Yep.
All right, Texas Tech, Purdue, and the Red Raiders upset the Boilermakers.
This was another coin flip. I think this would be a really good game. I'm going to go with what I've got written here, even though I don't know that this is what I'll end up actually doing. I had Texas Tech written down here, so I'll go with that. But, you talk about veterans with North Carolina. Purdue certainly has that. And I think, a lot of different guys that Texas Tech's got to cover. But I had Texas Tech written down here, which I guess was my gut reaction to it. So I guess I'll stick with that.
I had the same kind of thing. Maybe I don't know if when I wrote it down originally, it was just because our bias towards Purdue, but I had Texas Tech pulling out. And Butler is, not Butler. I was looking at Purdue is prone to some losses, so you never know. As good as they are, they could go really far, but they also have not done well in the tournament, so you never know.
I mean, it's Purdue in the Sweet 16. I don't think I can deal with them if they get to the Elite Eight. So Texas Tech it is.
There we go.
All right, Kansas and Auburn.
I got Kansas in this one. I think Auburn, probably with the personnel losses that they've had and doing what they've done, would be doing well to get to the Sweet 16. But I like Kansas there.
I mean, we were shaking on Auburn the whole way through. So
yeah, I was about to say, I think this entire side is, as much as Kansas has had a worse year than normal, losing 3 games at home for the first time since the mid '90s. I still think if you look at just all the teams, Penn, Seton Hall, NC State, Clemson, New Mexico State, Auburn, Charleston, I think Kansas still has a pretty easy time getting past at least those set of people.
All right, and then the Midwest matchup. Michigan State and Duke, who I believe they played each other in the regular season. If I'm not,
they played in the Champions Classic in the season. I'm going with Duke. I mean, Duke won that game, and Bagley got poked in the eye early and didn't play the vast majority of the game, and they still won. And I can't get that out of my head, and I can't get how many times Michigan State seemed like it played down to the level of competition in the Big Ten and let teams hang around that they should have just run off the floor. Now maybe they turn it on, and maybe it's another Tom Izzo masterpiece in March, but I'm going to go with Duke just based on what I've seen. And Michigan State will probably come out and hit a bunch of threes. But they just haven't taken good care of the ball all season. I think that becomes a factor as well.
So I assume, Matt, you're taking Duke.
Yes,
I'm going to say Michigan State, but democracy goes to Duke.
All right, Duke it is. All right, we got our Elite Eight: Arizona, Cincinnati for a trip to the Final Four. Andy?
I'm gonna go Arizona. I think if they make it this far, feels like they'll really have a lot of momentum. And I think there's probably a certain part of them that wants to stick it to everybody and get there.
Yeah.
And I do think, for as good as Cincinnati is defensively, I don't know what you do with Ayton at that point. I think he just becomes too much. So I think if Arizona gets that far,
Right.
I would certainly pick them. If it's Virginia and Cincinnati, that game is going to be the definition of a rock fight in that game. But
Yeah.
I'll go Arizona. We got some more.
I was going to say Arizona too, unless, like you said, if they get there, and then unless anything like major comes out, like they actually have proof that comes out that people are going to get suspended left and right or something like that. I think if they get all the way there, I think they're going to be on that hot streak, just like you said, Andy, just prove other people wrong.
Yeah, if UVA can't stop Ayton, then there's no way Cincinnati can when they don't have anybody to match up on them. So,
yep,
Arizona it is. First of our Final Four. Xavier, UNC. Any thoughts?
I'm gonna go Xavier. I actually had Michigan coming out of here in my bracket, but since democracy ruled today and North Carolina was there, I'm gonna go with Xavier. It'd be kind of weird to see Arizona and Xavier match up, teams that kind of everybody's like best teams that haven't been to a Final Four, and some of that. So that would be kind of interesting to see those two match up. So I'll go with Xavier, but I think that Xavier North Carolina game would be a good one for sure.
All right, Noah, go. Your thoughts?
I was gonna say Xavier, same kind of thing. It's I think it's gonna be a good game by the end of it, but I think it'd be cool just to see Xavier in the Final Four finally.
See, I was gonna say UNC, third straight Final Four. As much as it hurts my soul to say that, but Xavier, it is. Democracy wins.
I definitely wouldn't. I could definitely see UNC there. I don't think it's kind of a toss up again.
No. All right, so Villanova, Texas Tech. You think this is finally when the Red Raiders bow out?
Yep, I've got Villanova here. I think they're the one I feel most confident about of the ones that we've talked about so far.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Villanova it is. That's a three-way. And then we got Kansas and Duke, one of the marquee matchups of the Elite Eight. Any thoughts?
I mean, I really don't feel good about picking Duke this far, but I that's who I'm going to go with. I just think, Kansas has been weird this year. I think Duke, from a talent perspective, has as much or more than anybody else. So at some point that wins out and they continue to go on. But Kansas is a team that can really hit a ton of threes. So if you think about that against the zone, that could make things interesting. But I also don't know that with what Kansas has inside, how they would guard Bagley and Wendell Carter. So I'm going to go with Duke.
What about you, Matt?
I was also going to go with Duke. There's no way that Kansas can match up with this size. I mean, as the second tallest person on Duke, like you're going to have to put Azubuike on Carter because he's this play center, and then who plays the four is Marvin Bagley, and there's no one on Kansas that can match up with the freak. So I got Duke.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Duke as well. The only thing I could see if that ends up coming with it, if Duke is just at all just tired from just trying to battle against Michigan State a couple days earlier, that'd be the only thing that I could see would be faulting them against Kansas, who's had a relatively easy run towards then.
I mean, it's that, or you can't count out senior guards, and Devontae Graham's one of the best senior guards in the country.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, Final Four, first matchup of the Final Four, Arizona and Xavier.
You want to start us off, Matt?
All right, I'll start us off. I am actually going to go with, so in my brackets, I put Xavier, but I'm going to go with Arizona in this one. I think they make the final. You can't match up with DeAndre Ayton, them at full power, and I believe that if they make it this far, they're going to have that chip on their shoulder that we're going to go and try and win this thing. So Arizona is for me.
What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I'd probably go with Arizona as well. That would be an interesting matchup, but I would go with Arizona.
Same. I was going to say Arizona as well.
All right, so the closer matchup, in my opinion, the Villanova-Duke matchup. Andy, thoughts?
I'm going to go with Villanova in that one. I think they can. I think they can move the ball well enough against the zone to be able to deal with it. I'm not sure exactly how they deal with Duke's size on the other end of the floor, but I think they could score well enough with them. And again, some veteran guys who have been there before. So I'll go with them. I think that would be a super entertaining game.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You're going with Villanova? No.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Cats.
All right, Villanova it is. Though I do think that this game, if it was to be played, it'd be a 90-90 game. Like, there's going to be no defense played. All right, so our final matchup, championship game, Arizona, Villanova. Andy, what are you picking?
I'm going to pick Villanova. I think I think it would be a good game, but I'm going to go with the experience of Villanova, Jalen Brunson. I think they would have a huge edge at point guard between Jalen Brunson to Parker Jackson Cartwright. So I think they again try to figure it out. I mean, if they run through this and find a way to beat Duke and Bagley and Arizona and Ayton, they will certainly have earned the championship.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I like them, and I just think of all the teams that are out there, they're the one that I probably feel the most confident in. Not having a terribly off night and being able to kind of actually get their way through to the championship game.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Villanova. I didn't have either of those teams in 2 teams in the championship, so I'm just kind of going off what we're talking about now. But I think if it lays out the way we've been talking about it, I think Villanova does have a better chance. And I think Villanova is also the only other team that has looked semi-consistent besides Virginia the entire year. And obviously Virginia is the big question mark going at least deep into the tournament now. But if it's going to come down to all of this, like you said, Nova getting into beating Duke and then beating some of these big players. They've also had experience. Love Sean Miller. Hopefully his brother can at least follow in his footsteps very, very soon. But yeah, I don't think when it's all said and done, I think Villanova is going to be able to come out on top, just having a lot of experience recently.
All right, and that's it. Villanova wins. You heard it here first. As of March 13th, Tuesday at 10 p.m. at night.
Hey, we're not wrong yet. That's good.
We're not wrong, exactly.
We're not wrong until the first ball tips, and then you're like, of course, the first game is always like the one that messes me up too. I'm like, what? It has been the last couple of years at least. So.
Yeah, I think that Loyola Miami game is one of the first ones that tips off this year. So your Miami, your Loyola potential to the Elite Eight, you're gonna have your answer on that real quick.
Yeah, I'm gonna know like immediately.
All right, but that about wraps it up for our 26th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Andy, how can listeners find you and follow you on social media after this episode if they want to just get your insight? And I know you tweet a lot of stuff, just info and stuff here and there.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Andy Bottoms. Just how it sounds. So that's probably the easiest way to find me. We'll be doing assembly call shows weekly throughout the off season. So we'll have one. I think we're actually going to record on Wednesday night, so we're not recording up against the tournament. So we'll have those out once a week to kind of talk through off season stuff about IU and what to watch for with players, and try to come up with some good, fun topics to get our way through the off season, or at least until we get a final decision from Romeo Langford, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Yeah,
best place to find me.
Which we now have a sort of week span for that. And yeah, like I said a couple weeks ago, check out the assembly call if you don't already. Probably a lot of you guys already do. They have a lot of great stuff, and they'll be there throughout the off season talking about everything. Yep. There is no off season when it comes to the assembly call. But a reminder to follow us on Twitter at the Hoosier Sound, like our Facebook page, as well as subscribe to us on YouTube. If you enjoy the show, these are vital for receiving updates about our show. Visit our website at thehoosiersound.com to find all of our information regarding our podcasts, and stay tuned for updates through social media. As always, send us your questions as the audience, so be sure to comment, chat, or send us a message at contact@thehoosiersound.com on what question you have, and we'll get them on our next episode. Lastly, if you enjoy the show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links, and it really helps so we can try and grow this podcast. But thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.